You're listening to ABC Southern Queensland.
A recent meeting in Millmerran, hosted by Millmerran Commerce and Progress Association, was one of the first to involve a relatively new group called the Darling Downs Regional Alliance. The alliance was created by the Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce. Todd Rule is Chamber CEO. He can tell us more about this new player in local issues. Todd Rule, good morning.
Good morning, David.
Todd, I must admit I don't fully understand the alliance, so I'm going to get you to explain. I'm not sure if that introduction did it justice at all. What exactly is the Darling Downs Regional Alliance? Tell me.
Oh, David, it's what the Toowoomba Chamber did is it's engaging with all like-minded associations that are working very hard for businesses across the region. That includes Crow's Nest, Highfields, Millmerran, Oakey, Pittsworth, Clifton and Yarraman. And what we're trying to do is just bring everyone together to see common issues so collectively we can advocate for improvements or change or work out how we can work better with Toowoomba Regional Council to deliver better things on the ground, both for business and the community.
Is it, at the risk of sounding negative, and I don't mean to, but is it a public declaration or a public acknowledgement by the Chamber that the Toowoomba Regional Council area that it covers is simply too large to offer adequate presentation to all of the regions, so there is a need for a group like this to sort of almost come in and represent some of the communities that perhaps aren't getting a say?
Well, I'm not sure if that's how I would put it, David, but I think the best thing to say about it is what it is. It creates a real connectivity between really important parts in our bigger region, as you rightly say, where we can come together and articulate what businesses and what the community needs. Like you say, David, it is a massive region, and my understanding really is this is the last collective group in the old amalgamated areas. It's just a way where we can have our voice. And you could be right. It could be, well, we believe, I should say, it is a better way for us to express the views collectively for the whole region rather than just focusing on one part.
You, obviously being a Chamber of Commerce created group, your focus, and you've sort of touched on it there, your focus is very much the business climate or the hurdles to doing successful business in these areas. But do some of the issues related to just living in those areas tend to sort of spill over into that, that description as well?
Oh, David, 100%, because we know at the Chamber that if business hurts, the community hurts. So what happens in these groups is we get a real understanding from on the ground, from the grassroots, not only what's happening in business, but what the community are actually feeling and what they need.
Are the issues related to business in some of these smaller regions, do they largely mirror the issues related to business in Toowoomba itself, or are they as different as the different regions that the Alliance covers?
That's a very good question. And the interesting thing that when we've come together is there are always points of alignment. So what is happening in Pittsworth, we're feeling it, the local businesses in Toowoomba. What is happening in Oakey, we're feeling it as well, the local businesses in Toowoomba. Of course, they all have some additional separate issues specifically relevant to their town, and that's important to understand that as well.
And what role does Toowoomba Regional Council, though, play in the, the Alliance going about its work? I mean, to use this meeting that happened last month in Millmerran as an example, the Alliance was there. It was hosted by Millmerran Commerce and Progress Association, but I believe Toowoomba Regional Council representatives were there as well.
Yeah, in terms of the whole idea of collaboration, the Alliance invites all the elected officials to come and hear directly from the grassroots about how they feel and what they need. And we see that as critical in terms of getting our message or the message for businesses across the entire region directly to the elected officials. So that is a critical role that they play, and it's really important to get in front of these people so they can hear it from the people who are experiencing these things on the ground.
I believe one of the key issues that came up at this meeting last month, because it was certainly relevant to the people of Millmerran, but also the people of Crow's Nest, was housing, and particularly housing in relation to some big construction projects that are happening in both of those areas, with Crow's Nest, of course, with the pumped hydro project at Cresbrook Dam, and some of the work that's being done on the dam wall as part of maintenance work, and in Millmerran with the creation of wind farms and solar farms. Was any adequate solution arrived at to the issues of where we're going to put these workers, which no doubt will channel great amount of money into those respective communities, but horror if there's nowhere to put them all.
Yeah, David, it's a critical issue, and you've probably heard me bang on about this in the past previously, particularly in relation to Toowoomba. What we know is, we don't see the situation improving, but what we also know is we know that under the new leadership of Dr. Nicola Stepanoff, there is some progress being made in this area. It remains a critical issue, and it remains one which we're all very concerned about moving forward.
Do we know, for instance, with the projects in Millmerran, so the Genex wind farm and the Inland Rail, of course, which we've known about for a while, and the Bulleye Creek solar farm, do we know ahead of time whether each of those projects are likely to be building their own workers' camps, or perhaps trying to rely on bringing their workers in and out, or relying on what might be available locally in terms of rentals? Do we know those details?
Yeah, well, we don't know the details particularly in relation to the wind farm, but we have been very strong at Toowoomba Chamber in terms of Inland Rail and what that looks like and what it might feel like. We do understand that Inland Rail, for example, would bring in workers' accommodation, but we at the Chambers feel that we need to be supporting the towns, the whole region, in terms of housing and supporting the local accommodation providers, and that housing accommodation really, workers' accommodation, workers' camps should really be a last resort.
And also, if they have to go that way, is there any way of guaranteeing, particularly with Inland Rail, do we know from past experience where they've set up before, do they tend to be a self-contained operation if they set up a workers' camp that brings their food in from outside the region, and their workers come in from outside the region, and there's no guarantee of economic benefit at all?
Yeah, it's a really big challenge, David, and it's a really critical one, which the Toowoomba Chamber is very aware of. Obviously, we will fight hard for to use local suppliers at all costs in terms of those things, and we've made our position very clear on that. But it will be one which we will be watching closely, and no doubt all our members in the Regional Alliance will be watching closely as well.
What about just lastly, the pumped hydro project at Cresbrook Dam? I mean, does Toowoomba Regional Council have more control over the conditions that work will be undertaken, in terms of, can they insist that if they're workers' camps, you still source both workers and supplies and that sort of thing from the local towns?
I don't know the answer to that. I would hope the Toowoomba Regional Council would stand with us and arguing exactly for what you've suggested there, David.
So, how often will the group meet in terms of the regional alliance? What's the layout, or what's the plan from here?
Yeah, typically, David, we try and meet 3 to 4 times a year. Come together. All our minutes, once they're finalised, we forward them into the Toowoomba Regional Council to see any progress or messaging, to get their feedback. And it's really critical, David. I think we should say that the Regional Alliance and all its members can play a critical role in supporting Toowoomba Regional Council through, if they communicate decisions, if they do messaging with us, we can provide that through our networks. And we see that as a critical component in ensuring the better linkages with the decisions of Toowoomba Regional Council and the broader region. And what's critical also about that, I think, David, is it demonstrates our willingness, the Regional Alliance willingness, to work collectively and collaboratively with our local government to ensure the decisions are spread out and the messages sent. Even if we don't agree with them, that's okay. But what is critical here is the communication, which was one of the key issues raised, actually, at the Regional Alliance in Millmerran.
And just finally, just something that's just come to mind, of course, with the local government elections happening next year, is the alliance, have you sort of made a pact not to do this, or indeed is this something that you feel is the alliance's role to perhaps offer support or campaigning support for candidates in the election that seem to have the right credentials who are from outside of the Toowoomba region? Is that an area that the alliance feels it wants to dabble in?
I don't think the Alliance have discussed that specifically at this time, and I think that will be up to each individual chamber. What I can say is that the Toowoomba chamber is apolitical, so that is something typically we would not do.
Yep.
The interesting thing that you raised that, David, is the Toowoomba chamber is meeting, has done a survey with its members just recently, and we're meeting on Wednesday to discuss election priorities for the upcoming election with the people who made submissions. So watch this space. The Toowoomba Regional Council will be delivering an election platform document and will be advocating very strongly with all candidates about implementing that post-2024.
Well, look forward to having that conversation with you a little bit down the track. But Todd, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.